Welcome to this explainer. Today we're putting on our metabolic specialist hats to uncover a physiological reality that honestly might completely shock you. We are going to look really closely at why 7 specific foods, many of which are heavily marketed to us as healthy, might actually be silently destroying your cellular metabolism from the inside out. So let's dive right in by fundamentally changing how we view a slow or damaged metabolism. Ask yourself, is your metabolism actually broken? Or are your cells just starving? I know it sounds a bit crazy, but the reality is your body hasn't forgotten how to burn calories. Your metabolism is actually adapting to a perceived scarcity because of a condition we call cellular fuel inaccessibility. Your cells aren't broken, guys. They are quite literally starving. Okay, here's our consultation roadmap for today. We'll start with the diagnosis, then unpack the fructose burden, examine cellular disruptors, uncover the hidden starch epidemic, and wrap it all up with the prescription. All right, part 1, the diagnosis. Let's understand cellular fuel inaccessibility. Here is the true diagnosis. Your cells are starving in a sea of plenty simply because insulin resistance is actively blocking the fuel from getting inside. Think of insulin as a key. You've got ample energy floating around in your bloodstream, but your cells, they just stop responding to that key. Glucose is physically locked out. So what happens? Your body panics. It perceives this massive fuel shortage and adapts by conserving energy, even as all that unused fuel is accumulating all over your body as fat. It's a really frustrating cycle. Moving on to part 2, the fructose burden and how sweeteners overwhelm the liver. 21. That's the amount of sugar in grams found in a standard glass of supposedly healthy fruit juice. That is a massive metabolic load to hit your system with all at once. And you know what the real issue is? A huge portion of this is fructose. Fructose can't be used by your muscles for quick energy. It's processed almost exclusively by your liver. When you drink that juice, you completely overload your liver, which directly promotes visceral belly fat, liver fat, and full-body insulin resistance. This really perfectly illustrates the difference between eating whole fruit and drinking fruit juice. When you eat, say, a whole apple, you benefit from its natural fiber net. That fiber slows the sugar absorption, moderates your blood sugar spike, and actually keeps you full. But commercial juicing, it violently strips away that vital fiber matrix. It concentrates all that fructose into a liquid hit and completely destroys the natural vitamin C. Physiologically speaking, that healthy morning juice hits your liver exactly like a can of soda. And then, oh man, we have agave nectar. It's constantly marketed to us as this natural, low glycemic alternative, right? But here is the catch, and it's a big one. It contains 70 to 90% fructose. So that low glycemic label, technically true, but physiologically it's incredibly misleading. Because it's almost entirely fructose, agave basically bypasses the immediate blood sugar spike, sure, but it severely overwhelms your liver instead, quietly driving major metabolic disruption behind the scenes. Let's jump into part 3, cellular disruptors and the hidden dangers of industrial seed oils. It's wild to think about, but seed oils, we're talking corn, canola, and soybean oil, they now make up roughly 25 to 30% of our total caloric intake in the modern diet. They are hiding in virtually all ultra-processed foods. But here's the thing. These are highly delicate fats that have been subjected to brutal manufacturing. We're talking extreme heat, chemical solvents, bleaching, the whole shebang. And this harsh process generates these highly reactive, toxic byproducts called aldehydes. 600. Let that sink in for a second. Those heat-generated aldehydes we just mentioned, they directly damage your cellular membrane integrity and impair your cell's receptors, which aggressively drives up that insulin resistance we talked about earlier. But here is the absolute scariest part. Once these damaged oils become part of your cells, they don't just magically wash out in a few days. No, it takes up to 600 days for a full cellular turnover to finally clear these industrial oils out of your system. Which brings us to part 4. The hidden starch epidemic, looking at unsuspecting sources of glucose. We really need to walk through 4 massive hidden carbohydrate loads that are probably sitting in your kitchen right now. First up, oat milk. Listen, it's not like dairy or nut milk. It is literally a high glycemic starch suspension that spikes your insulin just like table sugar. Second, commercial kombucha, which is often severely under-fermented. Third, protein powders. The protein itself is great, obviously, but mass market brands often use cheap industrial starches like maltodextrin as a filler. And finally, modified food starches. These are chemically altered to literally bypass your taste buds sweetness detection, meaning you're consuming huge carbohydrate loads completely blind. A great example of this is kombucha. Comparing the traditional stuff to the commercial brands shows exactly how the modern food industry corrupts a health food. Traditional kombucha ferments for a long time, which allows the cultures to actually consume the sugar, leaving behind maybe 2 grams and a really rich profile of probiotics. Commercial kombucha, though, it's a rushed fermentation with tons of added fruit juices, leaving 12 to 20 grams of sugar per bottle. Instead of helping your gut, that massive sugar bomb is just feeding pathogenic yeast and fungi. There's a quote from our source material that just hits the nail on the head here. It points out that these starches remain largely invisible to public health discussion. And this is absolutely vital to understand. Industrial starches, like maltodextrin, stimulate an insulin response that equals or even exceeds normal table sugar. But because they aren't technically classified as sugars on a nutrition label, they just hide in plain sight, silently acting as a primary driver of our current metabolic epidemic. Finally, part 5, the prescription. Time for some healthy alternatives and a label checklist. All right, so how do we fix this? Here's your direct replacement game plan so you can take immediate action. Swap fruit juice and agave out for whole fruit to get that protective fiber net back. Trade those highly processed seed oils for extra virgin olive oil to protect your cells from oxidative damage. Swap out the oat milk for unsweetened coconut or macadamia milk. Ditch the commercial kombucha for home fermented versions if you can. And definitely replace those maltodextrin-laden protein powders with whole food protein like red meat to get superior amino acids without that massive hidden carb burden. And for your next grocery run, you absolutely need to memorize this prescription checklist. You can no longer just check the sugar line on the back of a box, You have to actually read the ingredients to spot those invisible, metabolically destructive industrial starches. So avoid maltodextrin, avoid modified cornstarch, avoid modified food starch, avoid tapioca starch. Your golden rule for metabolic health moving forward is simply this: prioritize whole, minimally processed foods with their natural fiber completely intact. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a real challenge. Think about it. What hidden metabolic disruptors are sitting in your pantry right now? I highly encourage you to go inspect your own kitchen today. Read those ingredient labels with your new understanding of cellular health and take ultimate control of your metabolism. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive.